All right, let's jump right in. When we think of the Gospels, it's easy to just picture a collection of stories. But the Gospel of Luke? It's different. From the very first sentence, the author makes it crystal clear that he's on a mission to create a carefully researched, logically structured, and historically grounded story of Jesus' life. So today, we're going to walk through that orderly account.
And this right here is so key to understanding the whole book. The author is writing to this person, Theophilus, not just to tell some stories, but to arrange everything in order. And why? To provide certainty. He's basically saying, look, I've dug into this from the very beginning, and I'm laying it all out for you step by step so you can be confident in what you've been taught. That really sets the tone for everything that follows.
So, following Luke's lead, we've structured our journey today into 5 parts. We'll start with how this whole narrative gets set in motion, then look at the miraculous beginnings, trace the ministry up in Galilee, explore the core teachings through his parables, and finally follow that fateful road to Jerusalem.
All right, let's jump right into part 1, an orderly account. What's so interesting is that Luke doesn't start his story with the main character. Instead, he carefully sets the stage, showing us that this whole thing was put in motion long before Jesus was even born. And you can see that orderly method right away. The book opens with this really deliberate parallel structure. The angel Gabriel makes 2 absolutely stunning announcements. First, he appears to an old, childless priest named Zacharias. Then, he appears to a young, unmarried virgin named Mary. These 2 promises of impossible births, well, they're the foundation that the rest of the entire story is built on.
Okay, on to our second section, miraculous beginnings. Because what we have here are 2 very similar announcements coming from heaven, but they get 2 very different human responses.
And wow, this just brilliantly illustrates the contrast Luke is setting up. On one side, you've got Zacharias. He's a priest, a religious insider, standing in the temple. But when he hears this incredible news, his first reaction is doubt. He asks, how can I be sure of this? He's demanding proof. Then you have Mary, a young woman with 0 social standing. Her response? It's this total faith. Let it be with me just as you have said. It's this beautiful, humble acceptance. And this contrast has immediate consequences. Zacharias is struck mute for his disbelief, while Mary's faith is celebrated. This whole theme of humility and surprise just keeps going with the birth of Jesus itself. I mean, he's not born in a palace, he's born in a stable, laid in an animal's feeding trough. And the grand, world-changing announcement isn't made to kings or the religious elite, but to shepherds, just regular working guys out in a field at night. From the very beginning, Luke's account shows us a world that's completely turned upside down. The story then jumps forward about 30 years, which brings us to our third section, a ministry in Galilee. This is kind of the proving grounds, where Jesus steps out onto the public stage and really begins his work. Luke presents the launch of this ministry like a rapid-fire series of crucial events. It all starts with his baptism by John, where a voice from heaven publicly identifies him. Right after that, he's driven into the wilderness for 40 days of testing, which solidifies his resolve. Then he comes back to his hometown of Nazareth to deliver what's essentially his mission statement, and boom, right after that, he calls his first disciples. In just a few short passages, Luke has firmly established Jesus' identity and his purpose. And his ministry just explodes onto the scene. It's this incredible mix of powerful teachings and even more powerful actions. Luke keeps using words like astonished and amazed to describe how the crowds reacted. It was that combination of words and deeds that showed this completely new kind of authority, one that quickly drew both huge crowds and some pretty intense scrutiny from their religious leaders. A perfect example of this authority in action is the healing of the paralyzed man. The scene is just electric, right? His friends are so desperate they literally start tearing a hole in a roof to lower him down to Jesus. But the very first thing Jesus does is so unexpected. He doesn't heal him physically. He looks at the man and says, "Your sins are forgiven." He goes for the spiritual condition first. For the religious experts watching, this is just outrageous. In their minds, only God has the authority to forgive sins. For a man to say that, it's blasphemy. But Jesus knows what they're thinking. So he performs the physical miracle, telling the man to get up and walk, saying he did it so that you may know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins. The physical miracle becomes the undeniable proof of his divine authority. But this authority wasn't just in what he did, it was also in what he said, and that brings us to our fourth section, parables of the kingdom. You see, Jesus' primary way of getting his message across was by telling these simple, memorable stories that had these incredibly profound meanings. In Luke's gospel, A huge chunk of this teaching is found in what we call the Sermon on the Plain, and what's so striking is just how radical and countercultural it all is. Blessed are you who are poor, love your enemies. I mean, this is not a list of easy suggestions. It's a complete reordering of how the world is supposed to work, all wrapped up by the Golden Rule. And a lot of his most famous parables were actually told in response to direct challenges. In this case, a legal expert comes up and tries to trap him. After they agree on the greatest commandments, love God and love your neighbor, the lawyer, looking for a loophole, asks this defining question. And who is my neighbor? He's trying to narrow down the list of people he actually has to care about.
So Jesus answers with the parable of the Good Samaritan. A man is beaten, robbed, left for dead. A priest comes by, sees him, and crosses the street. A Levite, another religious guy, does the exact same thing. But then a Samaritan comes along. Now, for the original audience, this was absolutely shocking. Samaritans were hated enemies. And yet, it's the outsider, the enemy, who shows compassion and saves the man's life. Jesus brilliantly flips the question from who do I have to help to who is the one who acted like a neighbor.
Another core theme of his teaching is this idea of radical forgiveness and restoration. And really, no story captures this better than the parable of the prodigal son. He tells it to explain why he spends so much time with so-called sinners, and it's just this beautiful story about what it means to be lost and then to be found.
You know the story. A younger son demands his inheritance, wastes every penny, and comes crawling back home in shame, ready to beg to be a servant. But instead, his father sees him coming from a long way off, runs to him, and throws this huge party. And when the older, dutiful brother complains that it's not fair, the father gives this incredible response. The point isn't about earning forgiveness. It's about the wild, irrational joy of having someone back.
And that brings us to the final, pivotal section of our journey today. This part marks a really dramatic shift in the tone and the direction of Luke's entire narrative. We're on the road to Jerusalem.
So for the first 9 chapters or so, Jesus' ministry is all centered in the northern region of Galilee. He's teaching, healing, gathering followers, but then the story makes a hard pivot. The focus narrows. It's no longer a travelogue. Now, a single, final destination comes into view: Jerusalem, the very center of religious and political power.
This verse right here, it's the hinge on which the rest of the entire book turns. Just listen to the intensity of that language. He steadfastly set his face. This isn't a casual road trip. This is a statement of immovable, resolute purpose. He knows exactly what is waiting for him in that city, and he is walking toward it with this clear-eyed determination.
So Luke's orderly account, which started with these miraculous promises in quiet little towns, now has a clear and ominous destination. He has methodically shown us who Jesus is, what he taught, and the authority he carried. And now he aims all of it, like an arrow, at the one city that was famous for rejecting God's messengers. And that leaves us with the final provocative question. Why? Why would you steadfastly set your face toward the one place you know will mean your own death? Well, the answer to that is the climax to which this entire orderly account has been building.